there's something insidious happening inside your mind right now. Something you probably haven't noticed, even though it's been growing stronger every single day. It's not your fault that you don't see it. This thing is designed to be invisible, to operate in the shadows of your consciousness while slowly poisoning everything it touches. You wake up feeling heavy for no reason. You scroll through your phone and somehow feel worse afterward. You have conversations that leave you drained, even when nothing particularly dramatic happened. You sit down to focus on something important, and your mind feels like it's wading through thick mud. Sound familiar? What I'm talking about isn't depression, anxiety, or any clinical condition. It's something far more common, yet rarely discussed. It's what I call mental trash. And just like physical trash, when you let it pile up without taking it out, it starts to stink. It attracts pests. It makes everything around it contaminated and unlivable. But here's the thing that makes this particularly dangerous. Unlike physical trash that you can see accumulating in your space, mental trash builds up invisibly. It disguises itself as normal thoughts, everyday worries, harmless distractions. It masquerades as productivity, social connection, even self-improvement. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's already everywhere. The average person today processes 5 times more information than someone did in 1986. 5 times. Your brain is drowning in input, and most of it is absolute garbage. Useless opinions from strangers, manufactured outrage designed to keep you clicking, endless comparisons that make you feel inadequate, recycled anxiety about things you can't control. All of this mental junk is accumulating faster than you can process it, and it's fundamentally changing how your mind operates. Think about your physical space for a moment. When your room is cluttered, when there's stuff everywhere, how does it feel to exist in that space? Overwhelming, right? Hard to think clearly, hard to find what you need, hard to feel calm. Now imagine that same clutter, but inside your head. That's what mental trash does to your consciousness. It creates internal chaos that makes everything harder than it needs to be. But the worst part isn't just that it makes you feel bad. The worst part is that it makes you weak. It makes you reactive instead of responsive. It makes you scattered instead of focused. It makes you consume instead of create. And most tragically, it makes you forget who you actually are underneath all the noise. I've spent years studying this phenomenon, and what I've discovered is both alarming and hopeful. Alarming because the scale of mental contamination in our society is unprecedented. We're dealing with levels of psychological pollution that would have been unimaginable just a generation ago. But hopeful because once you understand what's happening, once you can see the trash for what it is, you can start cleaning it up. And when you do, when you finally clear out the mental garbage that's been accumulating for years, something extraordinary happens. Your energy returns, your focus sharpens, your creativity flows. You start making decisions from a place of clarity instead of confusion. You begin to feel like yourself again. Actually, you feel better than you've felt in years, maybe better than you've ever felt, because you're experiencing what your mind is actually capable of when it's not constantly processing junk. This isn't about meditation or mindfulness or any of the usual solutions people offer. This isn't about trying to think positive thoughts or practice gratitude. Those things have their place, but they're like trying to clean a hoarder's house with a feather duster. What we're dealing with requires a more systematic approach. See, mental trash comes in different forms, and each type requires a different disposal method. There's the obvious stuff, the mental equivalent of fast food wrappers and soda cans, the mindless scrolling, the gossip, the celebrity drama, the political rage bait. This surface-level garbage is easy to identify once you know what to look for. But then there's the deeper stuff, the mental equivalent of toxic waste. The shame you carry from things that happened years ago. The anxiety you've inherited from a culture that profits from your fear. The limiting beliefs about yourself that you've never questioned. The emotional patterns you learned in childhood that no longer serve you. This deeper trash is harder to recognize because it's been there so long, It feels like part of your identity. And then there's the most dangerous type of mental trash, the kind that looks like food but is actually poison. The productivity content that makes you feel busy but not accomplished. The self-help information that keeps you perpetually seeking instead of being. The news that claims to inform you but actually just makes you more confused and agitated. The social media connections that simulate community but leave you feeling more isolated than ever. Your mind treats all of this input as if it's equally important. It doesn't distinguish between a genuine insight that could change your life and a random opinion from someone you've never met. It processes the trauma from a horror movie the same way it processes actual danger. It responds to manufactured controversy as if it's a real threat to your well-being. And all of this processing takes energy, enormous amounts of energy. That's why you feel tired all the time, even when you haven't done anything particularly strenuous. Your mental processor is running at maximum capacity, trying to sort through an endless stream of information, most of which is completely irrelevant to your actual life. It's like having a computer with a virus that's running hundreds of programs in the background. Everything slows down, everything becomes harder. But here's what happens when you start cleaning up this mental mess. When you begin to be more selective about what you allow into your consciousness. When you start treating your attention like the precious resource it is. When you create space between yourself and the constant stream of mental pollution that surrounds us. First, you notice how much mental energy you actually have. You realize that what you thought was laziness or lack of motivation was actually just exhaustion from processing too much junk. When you're not constantly reacting to random stimuli, you have bandwidth for the things that actually matter. Second, you start thinking more clearly. Without all the mental static, you can actually hear your own thoughts. You can follow a line of reasoning to its conclusion. You can hold complex ideas in your mind without getting distracted. You remember what it feels like to think deeply about something. Third, you become more decisive. When you're not second-guessing yourself based on every opinion you've absorbed, when you're not paralyzed by information overload, you can make choices quickly and confidently. You start trusting your own judgment again. Fourth, you become more creative. Creativity requires mental space, room for ideas to bump into each other and form new combinations. When your mind is cluttered with trash, there's no room for original thought. But when you clear out the garbage, suddenly you have ideas again. Solutions appear, possibilities emerge, and finally, you start feeling like yourself again. Not the version of yourself that's been shaped by algorithms and influenced by strangers, but your actual self, the person you were before you got buried under layers of mental debris, the person you're meant to be. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. Mental trash accumulates slowly, and it needs to be removed slowly, systematically. But every piece of garbage you eliminate makes room for something better. Every toxic thought pattern you interrupt creates space for genuine insight. Every pointless distraction you remove allows you to focus on what actually matters. The question isn't whether you have mental trash. Everyone does. The question is whether you're going to keep letting it pile up until it completely overwhelms your system, or whether you're going to start taking it out. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about feeling better. This is about reclaiming your mind, your energy, your life. In the next part, we're going to dive deep into the specific types of mental trash that are most toxic, how to identify them in your own thinking, and the exact process for clearing them out. We're going to talk about why your brain accumulates this junk in the first place, and how to build systems that prevent it from building up again. The process of clearing mental trash isn't comfortable. It requires you to confront things you've been avoiding, to question thoughts you've accepted as truth, to let go of mental habits that feel familiar even when they're destroying you. But this discomfort is temporary. What's permanent is the damage that happens when you do nothing. Think of someone you know who seems genuinely at peace. Someone who doesn't get rattled by every piece of news, who doesn't need constant validation, who can sit quietly without reaching for their phone. What you're seeing isn't some special gift they were born with. What you're seeing is a mind that's been cleaned out, a consciousness that's been freed from the accumulation of mental garbage. This person didn't achieve this state by accident. They made a choice. They decided that their mental space was too valuable to be filled with junk. They learned to say no to thoughts that didn't serve them, to information that didn't improve their life, to emotional patterns that kept them stuck. And slowly, systematically, they reclaimed their mind. You can make the same choice right now. Today, you can decide that you're done carrying mental trash that isn't yours. You can choose to stop processing every random thought that enters your awareness as if it's important. You can begin to treat your consciousness with the respect it deserves. Start small. Begin with the obvious garbage, the mindless scrolling that leaves you feeling worse, the conversations that drain your energy without adding value, the content that makes you angry or anxious without inspiring any meaningful action. Cut these out like you would remove infected tissue. Be ruthless. Your mental health depends on it. Then go deeper. Start questioning the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible. Challenge the beliefs you inherited from others without ever examining them. Notice the emotional patterns that keep repeating and ask yourself if they're actually serving you or just familiar. Most importantly, start paying attention to what you're feeding your mind. Just like you wouldn't eat garbage and expect to feel healthy, you can't consume mental junk and expect to think clearly. Be selective, be protective, be intentional about what you allow into your consciousness. The transformation that follows isn't just about thinking better thoughts. It's about becoming someone who naturally attracts better experiences, better relationships, better opportunities. When your mind is clear, when your energy is focused, when you're operating from a place of internal cleanliness rather than chaos, everything changes. You stop being reactive and start being responsive. You stop being scattered and start being focused. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the author of your experience. You remember what it feels like to be truly alive, not just existing in a fog of mental pollution. This isn't about perfection. Mental trash will always try to accumulate. The key is developing the awareness to recognize it quickly and the discipline to remove it before it takes root. It's about creating habits that keep your mental space clean, just like you have habits that keep your physical space livable. Your mind is the most powerful tool you'll ever possess. It's the lens through which you experience everything. When that lens is dirty, everything looks distorted. When it's clear, you see reality as it actually is. And reality, when seen clearly, is far more beautiful and full of possibility than the mental garbage would have you believe. The choice is yours. You can continue carrying mental trash that weighs you down, clouds your judgment, and keeps you from becoming who you're meant to be. Or you can start the work of cleaning it out, piece by piece, thought by thought, until your mind becomes what it was always supposed to be, a clear, powerful, creative force that serves your highest good. The time for accepting mental pollution as normal is over. The time for reclaiming your consciousness is now. Your future self is waiting on the other side of this decision. Don't keep them waiting any longer.